The woman to whom nature has denied beauty in vain endeavours to make it by art. And that is a quote from the World magazine in January 1755. Hi, hello, and welcome to this episode of Geography Girl. Today, I'm going to be taking you a look through the deadly world of Georgian beauty. It was a fantastic era for style and self-expression, with extravagant makeup and an unrelenting use of strong colours and extremely toxic and questionable methods of achieving these looks. This episode looks particularly at the trends of the French court, which was the powerhouse of fashion and style trendsetting within Europe, and by far the boldest, with both men and women during the Georgian era, not just inclined, but obligated to dress to their Georgian nines. The way we dress and express ourselves through trends and fashions is such a powerful way of communicating the ways of life, culture, and expectation on people at the time, and this episode certainly does not disappoint. So let's dive in. The Georgian era is a period of British history known for its Industrial Revolution, the emergence of Romanticism in art and literature, and the expansion of the British Empire. It spans from 1714 to 1837, covering the reigns of George I to IV and William IV. It was a time of big changes. It saw the birth of industrialisation, the growth in city populations, and the blooming of popular culture. It was also a time of extreme poverty alongside immense wealth. At the time, it was the French court that led the way in fashion across Europe. The fashion in the French court for men and women in the years leading up to the Revolution was all about excess and extravagance, plastering their faces with white and leaden paint and covering their cheeks with bright red rouge. Icons included Marie Antoinette, the consort of Louis XVI, as well as his mistress, Madame de Pompadour. Wealthy women from across Europe and especially in England looked on in awe, although were far more reserved in their use of makeup. In these times, being pale was a sign of wealth. It showed that you could afford not to toil outside in the sun, working the land. But it came with some dangerous consequences. The use of lead in white paint came with horrific side effects, with lead poisoning causing swollen and infected eyes, the decay of tooth enamel, hair loss, skin discoloration, and in many cases, death. The perils and dangers of lead poisoning was well known, but many ignored these up until Marie Antoinette's arrival in the 1770s, where the trend started to fade away amongst the young, although old schoolers still used it commonly in an attempt to conceal their scars and skin damage caused by the lead poisoning, aging, sun, and excessive consumption of sugar and alcohol. Many used skin patches, which I've actually noticed people wearing nowadays, cut into cute shapes like hearts, the moon, and stars to cover their scars. These were fashioned from black fabrics and stuck to the face using gum. The placement of the patch can convey a deeper meaning. For example, if you were feeling flirty, you could place one on your nose or in a dimple, on your upper lip if you wanted to exude majesty, and in the corner of an eye if you wanted to communicate a passion. One of the hallmarks of lead poisoning was losing your eyebrows, and so it became the trend to completely shave them off and draw them back on, or to have them plucked in a high arching shape. A common misconception, perhaps egged on by satirists of the time, was that women would use mouse skins on their eyebrows, but there's no concrete example for this, other than men writing about it. In A Beautiful Young Nymph Going to Bed by Jonathan Swift, written in 1734, he says, "Her eyebrows from a mouse's hide, stuck on the art on either side, pulls out with care, and first displays them, then in a playbook smoothly lays them." At the time, to be flushed was considered beautiful, and so big circles of rouge would be applied to look like a china doll. Rouge was a staple of Georgian makeup, but it was not worn by every woman in the same way. This all depended on their social class and location. For example, in the French aristocracy, they would use rouge as a badge of honour and a rank. It was a part of life at court and was not meant to look natural, whereas in the middle classes in France, it would be applied more lightly. In England, we would use rouge more sparingly to the French to create a more flushed look. And if you were a woman off the street, you would use makeup to try and conceal pockmarks and a sign of illness. The red pigment was provided by minerals such as cinnabar or red lead. Vegetable pigments included Brazil wood, sandalwood, and saffron. Or if you were really rich, you could use carmine, which came from a female beetle from Latin America and was incredibly expensive. The red pigment would be mixed with grease to create a pomade or water to create a rouge tint. A red or scarlet ribbon was another way to colour cheeks. The ribbon would simply be dipped in water or brandy and dabbed on the cheeks. Poorer women would even use red wine to stain their cheeks. For women of the French court, getting ready was a daily ritual, as outlined by Marie Antoinette in her letter to her mother in July 1770. At 11 o'clock, I have my hair done. At noon, all the world can enter. I put on my rouge and I wash my hands in front of the whole world. Then the gentlemen leave and the ladies remain, and I am dressed in front of them. Hair was fashioned equally extravagantly in puffs that could be up to 2 feet in the air. These were decorated with ribbons, feather and vegetables. Some were so tall that a woman would have to kneel down when entering a carriage or stick their head out of the window. They would use a pomade made of animal fat to keep it tall, which would often go rancid. Many wigs became infested with rats, and people would walk around with a scratching stick to relieve their life's infestation. Having a painted face was not only an expectation, but an obligation to be part of the French court up until the Revolution, where the excessive rouge and wigs became a dangerous symbol of the rich and aristocracy in France. It rubbed the general public in the wrong way, with nobles putting flour in their hair in the midst of a flour shortage. The French Revolution came and went, paving a way for a new era of more simplistic and more natural makeup. At the time, having a portrait painted was one of the best ways to gain attention. Women would use their beauty as a powerful asset to cultivate a public image. It was an effective way to climb the social ladder. And from these portraits, you could create print copies, which were displayed in the windows of places like print shops, inns, and coffee houses, where fans were able to buy copies. Audiences were mesmerised by the portraits of women displayed in art expeditions, such as the annual summer exhibition of the Royal Academy. For centuries, the English have been fascinated with the exploits and greed of the aristocracy. And these are the subjects of a 6-part series, Marriage à la Mode by William Hogarth, which illustrates the disastrous consequences of marrying for money rather than love. It is a series that satirises the upper classes, depicting a marriage arranged by 2 fathers and a wealthy merchant from London who wanted to buy into the aristocracy. The reputation of ladies was continually encouraged consequences of marrying for vanity society, or money rather than love. Rife in Georgian era and featured in many publications. These were available to read in coffee houses where gossip was a major pastime. This was a time where women didn't have to be born into money to make the most out of Georgian social networking. Good social networking could lead to financial support, favour, patronage and marriage. Many women who successfully climbed the social ladder were born poor. Their beauty and their ability to make the most of it was the key to their success. Georgian it girls include Kitty Fisher, Lady Coventry and the Duchess of Devonshire. Their beauty, style and fashion were admired and copied by women across Britain. Society's attitude towards makeup was mixed. Whilst women admired and experimented with it, many men would satirise it, considering it as a breeding ground for greed, vanity and gossip. In some cases, it was seen as vulgar, particularly in the late 1700s, where European attitudes moved against luxury and the elite towards a purer lifestyle. The English Parliament went as far to consider it akin to witchcraft. And by the Regency period, all the extravaganza came to an end, where a natural beauty was now the way to go. The beauty ideal of the Regency was a smooth, pale complexion with a hint of rosy glow and red-tinted lips. The upper and middle classes wanted their daughters to look respectable. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this look at Georgian makeup. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and please subscribe for more. I bring out new episodes every Tuesday. Goodbye.